how sweet it is to be in the Sweet 16 once again. Hello, Gators. I know you're all happy out there. Transferred live from Raleigh, where it just happened. Florida wins 77-75 over the back-to-back national champions, and no more Uconn. Sorry, folks, all you folks up there in the East who thought you had this one. Gators had to scramble, though. It was quite a game. It was a white knuckler, nail biter, whatever you want to call it. It came down to the end. Florida just about couldn't seem to get it going until it kicked in around 5 minutes. FRANZ, it was quite a game for the Gators.
It was an outstanding game, and in some respects, maybe, buddy, it was a game the Gators needed because they've been blowing people out, and sometimes you got to get your feet back down to reality. You maybe you're flying a little too high, and this team did what it had to do in the final minutes of this ball game. I was just so impressed with the way the defense stepped it up in the last 6-7 minutes of the game. How they all of a sudden they got all the 50-50 rebounds that they'd been missing. Uconn had been beating them on the offensive backboards and doing quite a job of it. They had, let's see, Uconn had 14 offensive rebounds, but only 5 of them in the second half. And late in the game, when the game was on the line, they were throwing up one shot, and the Gators were snagging that rebound. Give a lot of credit in the last 4 minutes, particularly to Tommy Houck, to Alex Condon. Those were warriors in that last.
Yeah,
in those
it seemed
last
like
two.
they needed a little more juice, and they came out. They played well at first. Then they not hit the snooze button, which they did the other night, but they just couldn't get it. And every single 50-50 ball went against them.
Yeah.
I can't say that the calls were that bad. They were pretty even, but they couldn't seem to get any, and they were not getting the rebounds. They couldn't break, they couldn't run because they didn't get the rebounds. And they put a clamp on Walter Clayton Jr. Let's tell it like it is, although you may say he may have got bumped and knocked. The fact is they did a good job. I don't think Clayton hit a bucket till like 4 minutes and something to go in the first half. And meanwhile, they got people like Elijah Barton to step up. They hung in there behind the whole way. Seemed like the last 15 minutes of the game, tied 31 all at halftime. And then, as we predicted and we've talked about, the depth of the Florida bench eventually comes into play, where you can keep throwing the guys at them like Florida does, and like that the Gators do when they have this bench. And they got those other guys off the bench with 5 minutes to go, and suddenly they kind of took the game over, didn't they?
Well, they did, and here's the other thing, buddy. Florida turned the ball over 9 times in the first half, and they gave up 9 offensive rebounds. So that's 18 scoring opportunities down the drain, and they still were tied at 31-31. Sign of a good team that can play not at its dead level best, and they weren't, and still be even with a really good team. That Uconn team can beat 90% of the teams out there, maybe 95% of them. There may only be 5 or 6 teams that they can't beat. And yet the Gators hung with them in the last 5 minutes. Uconn didn't get a 50-50 ball off the rebounds. And that's what I'm saying you look at how it happened. Guys tipping the ball out to other guys, et cetera, like that. And you look at a couple things. I mean, they're down to like 2.2 seconds on the shot clock at the end of the first half, and their guy, who's a terrible 3-point shooter, launches one from the timeline, and it goes in. And then we come down the court. Will Richards shoots, and the ball does everything but go in. And I bet, buddy, I would be willing to bet you if you go back through the film, you would see at least 10 shots that the Gators had that defied gravity. If they just make 5 of them, it's a blowout. If they if they just look at what they did on the free throw line, 22 for 34. You make 6 of those free throws, and all of a sudden, Florida's won the game by 12, 13 points, things like that. You know, because that would have changed how Uconn did things as well. So it's a tough game. It's a game we can be hypercritical if we want, but I think the best thing to do is to say this: Florida survived and advanced in
Yeah.
a game that was played against a quality opponent that could have won the game, and at the time that Florida needed to turn it on, they were able to and win the game.
Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing about it, though. I'm going to say this: it's hard to be critical of a team that wins a big game like that, and certainly they did. They deserve all the credit in the world for putting the hammer down late in the game and pulling it out. And then at the end, Walter Clayton Jr. I just tweeted out, Walter, oh well, Walter, where art thou? And then he put up 3 big 3-pointers after that. There were things that happened, and I'm not a guy who says the break's always against us or the refs beat us, but there were things happening uncharacteristic. I believe it was Richard, I'm not sure, who slipped on a slick spot on the floor, and his man tripped over him, and the
Yeah.
foul had to be called on Florida.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when things like that happen, you just can't get a break of any kind. So not only were we not playing well, and UConn started playing better, was the breaks didn't go their way. They couldn't get 50-50 balls. And there might have just a little bit of lack of ferocity there in the last 10 minutes. They turned it up, especially with 5 minutes to go, and that was the difference in the ball game. But it was even at the end, Florida made them. That was a dumb foul Walter Clayton made to put them back even in the game, which they would have been, but would have taken a miracle. So congratulations. Franz, out of all this, what did you learn?
That Florida is resilient. That Florida, when Florida has to get it done, they get it done. And again, nobody is pointing fingers at each other, anything like that. They just get out there and get it done. Very, very, very impressive when you see stuff like that happen. I mean, I'm left with the idea that that Florida really and truly is a team unlike any other out there. I think the Gators proved it tonight. I think the Gators proved that when push comes to shove, they will rally and they will win games. And it's hard to beat a team. You know what was Bill Murray was at the ball game,
Yeah.
and it made me think of that old saying from what was the movie? I guess he wasn't in this. It was um, the Blues Brothers, where the line is, "We're on a mission from God." And and did you ever start to think that maybe these guys, in some one respect, that's what they're on? I mean,
I know this, but Bill Murray didn't get my vote anymore, pulling for UConn against the Gators. He was out there pulling for them. So whatever.
well, yeah, guys do what guys do. They have
As
their
long
day.
as we said that, though, let's go ahead and say that we both felt like Raftery, Ian Eagle, and Grant Hill. I'm never one to complain about bias in announcers, but openly, it seemed like they went out of their way to comment about somebody in the East and didn't seem to want to give Florida proper credit at the time. Am I wrong about that? I mean, it seemed like they were
No, I sat
biased.
behind. I sat behind those guys the other day, and I got to tell you, I wasn't impressed. I mean, I guess I should be. I mean, thanks to them, I got a lot of TV time.
Yeah, you did. I heard you were on tube a lot.
Yeah, every time they showed a picture of Grant Hill, I was there, right there behind him. And the thing about it is it's kind of like I get so sick of Dick Vitale and his push and Duke, push and Duke, push and Duke. Duke's a really good team. There's no question about it.
Winning big today.
I mean, they look good today and everything like that, but they were playing a Baylor team that's been beat up all year. That's not as good as JD's teams in the past. I thought for the first 15 minutes, I thought Baylor was really good, and then all of a sudden, Duke just wore them down. Cooper Flag's a great player, no question about it. But is Duke? What would Duke do in the SEC? Fourth, fifth? I think Duke will get run out of the gym by Alabama if Grant Nelson is healthy.
Despite all that, the numbers for Walter were 23 points. He was 5 for 8 for 3-point. And he when they really needed him, he came through like crazy. But he had all he wanted for a while, and I think one of the things is he gets some good quality rest from his bench, which helps him a lot. All right, now what's next for Florida? What does this mean? You'll be in San Francisco next. Tell me about this next opponent. Tell me about what kind of physical condition they're in. And you went to Todd's press conference. What did he have to say?
Yeah, I went to Todd's press conference. He was very, very humble and said, hey, talking about Walter, he said, this guy does what all Americans do. And then he was very, very complimentary of Elijah and Will Richards. Said, these guys are seniors. They have been there, done that, and by golly, they showed up and did it. Got to give tremendous credit to these guys. These three guys in the perimeter are as good, if not better, than anybody in the country. There's nobody. I don't think there's, I know Cooper Flag's a great player. I know Janai Broom's a great player. But if you ask me who the best player in the country is, it's Walter Clayton. I mean, Walter Clayton Jr. is to me, is the best player in the country. He is the best guard Florida has had in a long, long time.
Most people would say ever. That's covers a lot of territory. Give them this ability to shoot the basketball, like someone said, when they need a basket and to set other guys up and then make difficult shots. When the clock's going down, he has only a little space. He gets the ball to the hole, gets his shot off in a manner which I don't think I've ever seen in Florida. So certainly there, everything he did, his leadership qualities are obvious too. So that's really good. So I think we're going to eventually get Rob in here. I believe Bennett's got him to come join. Auburn's next. Talk about the next opponents of Florida.
Well, Florida's going to get the winner of Uconn and I mean, not Uconn. They've already beaten them. Colorado State and Maryland. I picked Colorado State to beat Memphis when Memphis was a 5 seed and they were a 12 seed. But they're really a good ball club, buddy. They fly under the radar, and they're really hot right now because they have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 13. They won 13 games in a row, and they're playing tonight against Maryland. I think they can win. They play great defense. They're not a great rebounding team. But I don't think this is one of these teams that I don't think they have to be a great rebounding team simply because they get out and move the ball down the court so well. They share it so well. They get a lot of good shots. They get a lot of really good shots. So I'm not sold on Maryland at all. Maryland, what can I say about them? They should still be in the ACC, buddy. That's all there is to it. And it was funny because I was talking to people today, and there are people who are still very, very bitter that Maryland is no longer in the ACC. And I told people, I said, well, don't you think they looked out for their better financial interests by going? And, people were saying, oh, that's a cop-out, that, they were in the ACC. They were always in the ACC.
Everybody beat them. That's right.
Well, they won they won a national.
I know. They had their moments of left through Giselle too, but they were not in North Carolina. So
yeah, well, they were never going to be, it's funny because I'm looking at in the press room and there's this picture of David Thompson ripping down a rebound.
I think we lost France there for a minute. He's talking about the rebound. I think what he's going to say was that there was a picture there, and he was. They showed the press center. They showed the media bench, and young Franz Beer was sitting there. So yeah, France has been around. France knows a lot of basketball.
Where is he? I didn't see him there.
Who?
Franz. Were you in the last picture?
No, it was a picture of old photograph.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Back in the day, they showed the old picture. He and Chris
Okay.
were watching it.
Okay.
And then he looked up at the breast row, and there he was as a young fella. So yeah, so Brendan, you and I were texting. I don't know what happened to France. We lost him.
No, he'll come back. He probably lost him. Who knows? The cell service is terrible there. But these pictures are fresh by Chris Spears, GatorbaitMedia.com, by the way. Just fresh off the hardwood there. So good job by Chris Spears. Does fantastic work and doesn't really get enough credit. There's Franz.
Yeah.
There he goes. Franz, you there?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
No, what I was saying is there's a picture. There's David Thompson ripping down a rebound. Mark Moeller, North Carolina State's in the picture. There's John Lucas in there, and Owen Brown of Maryland. And I'm looking there on the press row, and I'm picking up. There's Joe Teedy. There's Colton Tudor. On and on and on. And I keep going down the road, and I wait a second. Who's that guy with the long hair and the beard? And I think, oh my gosh, there's still proof that I once had a lot of hair.
Were you wearing bell bottoms?
Absolutely,
buddy. Of course. I mean, I was a
I
fashion.
love bell bottoms. I thought they were great.
I was the fashion king of press row back in my day.
Oh, I don't know. Buddy was pretty fashionable. I got.
Well, I'm talking about here in the ACC.
Okay.
I mean,
well, yeah.
Here in the ACC, I was kind of set the fashion trends. I mean, Frank DeCenzo of the Durham Sun used to come in, and Art Chansky used to come in wearing their coats and ties and everything like that. And not me. I looked too much like a hippie to be them. But it was fun times. And it was good to be, it was kind of good to be back here in this area, back there, and listening to people talking about the demise of the ACC and asking themselves, can we ever get back to a level where we were? Can Duke survive at this level? Because Duke is going to be trying to compete for players with the SEC, and there's no money. And I'm thinking, come on now, there's always money at Duke. But I understand what they're saying is that there is so much money that's pouring into the SEC right now, and they're really feeling the squeeze. They're really and truly feeling the squeeze because of the way the SEC is not only spending money, but the SEC is allocating money to basketball. I got a chance to talk to Greg Sankey Friday evening, and Greg Sankey, gave plenty of credit to Mike Slive because Mike Slive just told everybody, hey, if we're going to be a great conference, we got to play great basketball. It's got to be somebody other than Kentucky and Florida. And you look at this conference now. I mean, we're 15 teams deep, 14 teams in the tournament now, and right now the SEC's won 12 ball games. They're about to get number 13 because Kentucky's going to win tonight.
But they also set a record for most losses by a conference, 6. So, but you had so many teams. That's one reason. There were so many teams.
Well, you got so many teams, but the thing about it is you can have all these teams. The Big Ten wins 10 ball games early on. Everybody's saying, "Wow, the Big Ten this, the Big Ten that." Well, I'm looking at this. Auburn's going to beat Michigan. I promise you that.
Michigan's a very beatable team.
New Mexico State, New Mexico, coached by little Ricky Pitino, I believe is going to beat Michigan State tonight. That's a winnable game for little Ricky. Okay. Oregon is going to face Arizona tonight. I wouldn't be surprised to see Arizona win that one. BYU has already beaten Wisconsin, and I keep going down the list. Houston is going to get Purdue. Purdue will lose its next ball game.
Purdue set a record of some kind, didn't they? By most trip, I think, yeah, there was some kind of record, most consecutive wins or whatever it was.
Yeah,
they broke some kind of record. Yeah, there's always some kind of. It's who gets to the Final Four is the question. We hope it's going to be Auburn and Florida, but you just don't know. And
I'll take Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, and if Grant Nelson is healthy, I'll take Alabama over Duke.
Yeah, see, I got Duke in there, and I've got Houston in there, and I got Florida and Auburn. So we'll see. But all right, so let's revamp. Let's just go back and take Friday night's game against Norfolk State and this game today, which is the nail biter and the one that scared everybody to death, white knuckle game. And we talked about what Florida may have learned. Let's talk about the players who've been so consistent. I was sorry to see Chimelo get in foul trouble tonight because he really has become a big part of this.
He was really coming on and dominating on the boards.
Yeah, and then Chimelo, then obviously Elijah Martin had a huge game. We know about what happened to Walter. He played well at first and then disappeared and came back and played well at the end. Is there one particular person that I'm overlooking that you think was outstanding and had
the two big guys, Tommy Hawk and Alex Condon? Look at the stats, and the stats don't really tell the story. But Condon had 5.7 rebounds. Tommy Hawk had 7 points, 7 rebounds. Condon had 4 assists. Tommy had 2. You look at what they did. These guys were warriors at the end. And you don't get to games like this, through games like this, to the next step in the tournament, because it's 2 down, 4 to go. You don't get there if you don't have guys that just sit there and grind. And these guys do that. They grind, buddy. Florida's a really, really good basketball team.
Yeah, they're pretty good at basketball. I know you've been high on this team for a long time, and I have been in recent months as well. And I want to see these guys continue to get better, though. And I knew for certain this was going to be a nail biter and a test because, like someone said, Rudy Tomjanovich once said, never underestimate the heart of a champion. And these guys showed that they weren't quite good enough, but they still had that heart of a champion. Yeah. They were tough. You had to really stick a blade in that, and like they do with the, they had to stick a blade in their heart to stop them. And they were very, very competitive. And I don't like Coach, but I must say he had him ready to play. And it was a huge win for Florida. And now, no time to rest. You can't breathe easy. But this basketball team, I think, has begun to play its best game just at the right time. And FRANZ, as we know, it's all about these next 5 games.
Well, it's 4 to go. 4 to go, and you win 4 more, and you're the national champion. I think Florida's the best team in the country. I think great teams do what they have to do to win, and it's like, I kept hearing people bitching and moaning about Friday night. Well, the Gators won the game by 26 points. You can gripe and complain all you want to, but 26 points is a lot of points. You know what? That's a lot of points. Florida was never in danger of losing that ball game. Florida was never in danger.
They were behind. They were tied at halftime. They were behind.
I'm talking about Friday night.
Oh, Friday night. Okay.
Friday night, they weren't. And in this game, I look at it like this: the Gators, in spite of look at all the offensive rebounds they gave, really they gave up 18 offensive chances. They gave away 18 offensive chances in the first half, and it's still tied. I bet you, buddy, I bet you there were 10 shots over the course of the game that Florida took that defied gravity. One of which was you look at the shot Will Richard takes at the end of the first half, and that ball is 2/3 of the way down, and it all of a sudden goes back out.
It did.
Uh,
It did. You're right.
Walter had 3 layups that I can think of that I can't believe that they didn't go down. Neither could anybody else. But it's not so much the ones you miss early on, it's the ones you make when it counts. And Florida made the shots when it counted.
Mm-hmm. For sure. All right. So now on to the next round. We will look who's here. Coach Meadows just showed up just in time.
Yes, sir.
I wonder if he might have been watching the game. Franz, do you think?
I think there's a distinct possibility he had one eye on the tube and maybe one eye on something else, but I would say there's a really good possibility that Lauren.
You did hear they won, right, Lauren?
I did. It's funny, and we all know this and guilty of it. It's hard to keep your journalistic badge on for a game like that. All of us have a little bit of a soft spot for the Gators. So, but big win, man. I think, and Franz, you probably have maybe touched on it before I came on, but this may be before they get to the Final Four. This could be the toughest game on their slate. I mean, playing the 2-time defending champs, a team that had been there before, you definitely could tell. And I think they took the moniker on, we're not trying to defeat a number 1 seed. We're trying to defend our national title. And, props to Florida for, making it happen. So, yeah, it was a great game, man. Unbelievable.
Well, I think Buddy hit the nail on the head earlier when he's talked about, UConn has a championship pedigree.
No doubt.
And teams with that kind of pedigree are not going to go down easy. But at the same time, Florida should have beaten them by 20 points or more. Should have, didn't, but that's not necessarily a bad thing that they didn't, because by playing the game so tight as it was, the Gators had to find a gear that they didn't know existed. And that was the one that says, okay, your season is over if you don't do something in a hurry. They did something in a hurry.
I think it's a sign said this way to San Francisco.
Well, I mean, Franz is sitting in Raleigh where a famous coach once said, survive in advance.
Yeah.
It don't matter if you win by 1, don't matter if you win by 20. Just keep knocking them down.
Jimmy V.
Well, you've got to, at this point in time, your mentality has to be exactly that whatever we must do to get past this game, to get past this opponent, we've got to do it. We've got to play harder. We got to play smarter, and we got to do things. People may have to dive on the floor. People may have to fight the scratching and clawing, etc., like that. Whatever you got to do, you got to do it. And that's one of the reasons they call it March Madness, is because it brings that out of your players. You get players every single game, every single season when we have a championship tournament. Somebody steps up and becomes a hero that we had no idea had it in him. And it's an amazing thing.
But you have to have that ferocity too. And I know that one of the things that worried about the team on Friday night was they lacked it. They got it when they needed it at the end. I guess it was Richard's rebound at the end. He went up after a missed foul shot and ripped that ball down. Man, there wasn't nobody getting that ball from him. And that's what I want to see. Okay, now we can play. And apparently they went in the locker room afterwards, and Elijah Martin, who's really saved their butts with the way he played. Headbutted Todd Golden in the locker room in the fracas they had. So obviously this team is quite different, a special relationship. There were some weird plays in there, like you guys to address them. First of all, every loose ball went to the other guys. Every single loose ball just didn't go. None of them went far his way for really the first
30 minutes of the game.
30 minutes of the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was to have to be in a critical situation, have your guy playing defense hit a slick spot on the court and fall down, and the guy he was guarding trips over him and
Yeah.
foul. Now
Yeah.
it was a foul, but that's bizarre when that
Yeah.
happened. Like, what in the world? What else can go wrong for this team?
Well,
It was in the cards.
Hassan Diarra, there at the end of the first half, is down to 0.2 on the shot clock, and this is a guy who's a terrible 3-point shooter.
Throws it up there.
And he throws up a prayer, and his prayer got answered.
Man, logo 3.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So they got past, and like Franz said earlier, this may be that litmus test they needed to get toughened up, to realize they've got to be there at their best, and they can't take a breath. They got taught that a little while Friday night, an 11-0 run by Norfolk State. They came out tense, making Lauren uncharacteristic mental errors today. This team just doesn't make. Shot terrible from the foul line. What was the foul account, Franz, and the foul shots?
22 out of 34, but
he just shot terrible.
That goes to the point. Let's just say they have that, okay? That's 6 more points, and it's 83-75, and we're talking about
a dominant win.
Yeah. You look at Uconn rebounding the basketball. They got let's see how many points they get on second chance. They got 14 offensive rebounds, and they kept balls alive, and they wind up getting points. And you got to take, every time you give up an offensive rebound to somebody, you got to look at it realistically and say, that's a missed scoring opportunity for us. We gave them a scoring opportunity, and we missed ours.
Yeah.
9 first half turnovers.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. Only 3 turnovers in the second half.
Yeah, they finally got that under control. Here's a little thing from Dan Hicken. Apparently, Hurley walked off the court and passed the guys from Baylor and said, I hope they don't F you like they F'd us, Baylor. I really hope they don't.
He's better than that. I mean, I think that and FRANZ can, he's better than that. He's not.
He's not.
Well, he should be then. If he's not better than that,
he's a real jerk.
I mean, and just like, him telling the ref earlier this year out in Maui, don't turn your back on me. I'm the best coach in the country.
Yeah, right. No way.
And, I got a real soft spot for the Hurley family. The dad and some of the things that he's been able to do, and obviously Bobby. And I like Danny. I do as a coach. I think he's got a good heart. But you want to be the villain, and I don't know why, but it just, that there's no place for that. And you shouldn't be talking to another man's team like that. You walk off, you say we had a great run. We ran into a buzzsaw of a team, which they did in Florida, whose kids made unbelievable plays. And then you go off and you recruit some more. I mean, you'll be back. But that was out of pocket.
Well, as I said in my column in my notes, actually on Twitter today, he talks about how much respect he had for Billy Donovan and really appreciated what he did. Of course, Billy was the last one that went back. I said, don't put his name in your mouth, man. You don't deserve that. Don't put your name in the same paragraph or Billy Donovan. You ain't nothing like him.
Well, he's a great coach, and let's face it, every coach does it his own way.
Mm-hmm.
We're not we're not necessarily going to like the way everybody does it. It's like you look, Texas just fired the nicest coach in the SEC. You will not find a nicer human being than Rodney Terry. But he wasn't getting the job done, and now they're going to take all these millions of dollars and they're going to make a Godfather offer to Billy Donovan. And if Billy is smart, he'll take it because the people in Chicago are not going to give him the players he needs to win.
No.
So why not go back to college? And back in the day when he couldn't get certain players because other teams had all the money, now he's got a team. He'll have a team that has all the money. I mean, my gosh, you just tell Bubba, I need this new point guard. So we'll go punch for some oil in your backyard. And I need about 32 barrels a day to pay for this guy. I mean, that's what it's like. Life is like. Somebody said Sean Miller took the job. It means that Billy told him no. If that's true, then that means that Billy told them no, no, hell no, and
double hockey stick, triple dip, no.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Well, that means that Billy turned him down, but that's been the rumor for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's been really credible people from Texas who are saying that they would make that kind of offer to Billy. Now, there's a lot of people up here in North Carolina that say, if we could just get rid of Hubert, we could hire Billy here, and he'd come here because he wouldn't have to coach against his old team. And maybe there's some truth to that. I don't know.
All right. In response to your comment about people just do it differently, look, that's not the same thing. Nobody was more hated than Steve Spurrier. He was absolutely the most hated man in college football, and certainly in the SEC. But Spurrier would never stoop as low to walk off the field past another team and say, I hope they don't F you like they F me. That's just low rent. That's not.
Well, I don't disagree with that.
It's out of pocket for sure, but
it's not something. That's not something he should have said. That doesn't change the fact that he's a really good basketball coach.
Yeah, well, that just goes so far. Anyway, bottom line is they won the game. As we wrap up this show, we don't have time to get into other things like Gator baseball right now. Ooh, painful. I know a lot of Gator fans are breathing a sigh of relief, including Laura Brothers. She said she can breathe again now. Speaking of Gators in the media who, have their own teams, I can breathe again. What a game! This is fun. Lauren, Gator Nation is having a great time enjoying this. Due levels of enthusiasm. There's that theory: a rising tide raises all ships. Maybe this will spill off into the football program. Who knows? But it certainly is fun to watch. Nerve-wracking, yes, but they're bringing us a new level of competition we haven't seen in a while. And Gator fans they've got a wake-up call, and they're loving it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at if this thing keeps going, you could be hoisting the national championship trophy, the week before the spring game, which I think will bring a lot of fire and a lot of, because you'll probably be fresh off of a championship celebration in the stadium or the old dome, wherever they do that kind of thing. And then you'll follow that up with the spring game. And, at the end of that, the baseball team and the softball team are going to be in the mix. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, if they can get this thing going, it's going to be it's going to be a fun spring. And, like you said, you get that going and that spring game is just going to have a lot of fire because I think people are just going to want to be around the atmosphere with the banners and everything that's coming with the fanfare that the football team is going with. So I agree.
How about a parade now? Lauren, if there's a parade, you got to get me and Franz in there.
I got you.
And plus in the back of the convertible.
I got you.
We'll be running down the University Avenue. That's high-fiving people, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, you royalty, man. So they'll probably have you
Uh,
at the Grand Marshal right in
no,
front
no, I
of
don't
it.
think so.
You know?
It's fun. I could find myself saying, I don't want this to end today. I don't want this season to be over. I'm really loving this. It's great. It's
Well,
fun.
we've got 2 more weekends of Florida basketball at the most. And what I would tell everybody is this: savor it, because um, I was even talking to some Duke fans, and Duke hasn't won a national championship in several years. And a Duke fan told me today, he said, you know, he said, what this last drought has told me, he says, it's told me that I have been taken for granted these national championships, that I've got to be, I got to savor them. I got to love the ones we get, because they're hard to come by. If they were easy to come by, Kentucky would have 20 of them. You know,
Martin putting up all the scores and the games coming up to watch that. I'm rooting for Rebecca, my daughter's team, the Rammies, to win tonight, and we'll be cheering for her. She and her husband both went to Colorado State, and I'm looking forward to what's next for these Gators. Let's hope they don't get in any car crashes, or nobody comes down with a sprained ankle, or nobody gets in
you
trouble.
do that at Georgia.
Right?
That's what you do at Georgia. Okay, come on, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, at Georgia, somebody will go out and tie one on and drive his car about 140 miles an hour, and then blame it all on Carson Beck.
Well, that's kind of every week there for sure. Let's hope jinx it though, for sure. Any final thoughts there, Lauren?
Like I said, I mean, good for Florida to get that. I think this will be one of the tougher teams they'll play in this 6-game run. I like their odds going forward. I thought if they would, if they got past this, I think they can play with anybody, and we know that. And good for them to be able to come back to Gainesville, take a little break, or maybe they're going. I don't know, Franz. Are they going to go on out, or are they coming back to Gainesville?
They will probably come back to Gainesville for a day.
Okay.
I don't know that for sure. In the past, Billy did it one way.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, he did it different ways.
Then he did it one way. They went out there, and the next year they flew back each time. And when you got a private plane, and let's face it, it's an hour and a half drive. Hey, whoa! Look who's there! Hey!
Hey.
Up there.
So
Marsha.
What's up,
Yeah.
Alexa?
Go Gators.
Yeah.
But
So,
it's only an hour and a half. It's an hour and a half flight out of Raleigh, and they fly a private jet. So
right.
it's an hour and a half, and it's a chance to get your guys sleeping in their own beds, etc., like that. And I could see them doing it either way, and it doesn't really matter. So
All right, so we'll catch up. Now you're traveling tonight or tomorrow. You don't yet, friends, right?
I'll be home tomorrow afternoon,
Right,
and
we'll try to get you on tomorrow night on the show.
I'll have time to wash some clothes and make sure I got clean underwear packed. And
Write your story and get on the show, and you off you go, right? So
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
exactly. And
I hope to see both you and Lauren in San Antonio. If it works out that way, that'd be sweet.
That's
Get
the
that
plan.
more. Been fun. Just want to say thanks to all of our sponsors today, who made it possible for us to have a sponsor-free, commercial-free 45 minutes. Don't forget to join Gator Bait Media. You can read these two dudes right here, Lauren Meadows, who's due for a football column soon, and Franz Beard, who's grinding it out once again. And tonight, I'm going to say thank you to Carlton Reese for a nice column about how pretty an ugly win can look. So I'll be writing something for tomorrow as well. So stay tuned for that. Good job by Brendan Martin for hustling us up, guys. Have a great night, and congratulations once again. How sweet it is. The Gators are going to the Sweet 16.
yes, they are.
All right, guys.
Adios.
Night.